Kelly Smith stared at the crumpled note in her trembling hands, the words blurring through her tears. "Gone to celebrate with my real daughter. Don't bother looking for us." The empty house in Phoenix felt like a tomb, and the 2,200-mile journey from her apartment in Boston suddenly seemed like the biggest mistake of her life. But this moment of devastation would become the catalyst for a transformation she never saw coming, a journey that would teach her that sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you're born into.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Kelly Smith had always been the outsider looking in, even in her own family. At 26, she carried herself with the quiet determination of someone who had learned early that she couldn't rely on anyone but herself. Her small apartment in Boston's Allston neighborhood was a testament to her independence. Meticulously organized, every book on her shelf earned through late nights at the public library, every piece of furniture carefully chosen from thrift stores and slowly restored with her own hands. The morning sun filtered through her gauze curtains as Kelly sat at her tiny kitchen table, laptop open, surrounded by the familiar chaos of her freelance graphic design work. 3 different client projects spread across her screen, each one a stepping stone toward the stability she craved. She'd built her career from scratch, teaching herself Photoshop and Illustrator through YouTube tutorials during her community college years, when money was too tight for formal design school. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate, Sarah. "Coffee run. Want your usual?" Kelly smiled, typing back a quick, "Yes, please," with a heart emoji. Sarah Chen had been her lifeline since they'd met at a networking event for young professionals 2 years ago. Where Kelly was cautious and reserved, Sarah was bold and outgoing, somehow managing to draw Kelly out of her shell without making her feel exposed. But even with Sarah's friendship and her growing client base, Kelly felt the familiar ache that had followed her since childhood, the sense of not quite belonging anywhere. It intensified around holidays, especially Mother's Day, when social media became a minefield of happy family photos and heartfelt tributes. Kelly would scroll through endless posts of daughters with their mothers, bouquets and brunch photos, #BestMomEver captions that made her chest tighten with something she couldn't quite name. Her relationship with her mother, Patricia Smith, was complicated in the way that only family relationships could be. Patricia lived in Phoenix with Kelly's stepfather, Robert Martinez, whom she'd married when Kelly was 15. The marriage had brought Kelly a stepsister, Amanda Martinez, who was 3 years younger and everything Kelly felt she wasn't. Bubbly, social, the kind of person who lit up rooms just by walking in. Kelly remembered the day Patricia and Robert's wedding photos had gone up on the living room wall. There was the happy couple, beaming. There was Amanda in her lavender bridesmaid's dress, looking radiant. And there was Kelly, awkward in her ill-fitting dress, standing slightly apart from the group, a forced smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. That photo had always felt like a metaphor for her place in the blended family, present, but somehow separate. Over the years, the distance between Boston and Phoenix had become more than geographical. Phone calls with Patricia grew shorter and less frequent, usually ending with her mother mentioning something wonderful Amanda had done. Her promotion at the marketing firm, her new apartment, her latest vacation photos. Kelly would listen and make the appropriate responses, but each conversation left her feeling more invisible. The irony wasn't lost on Kelly that she'd moved clear across the country partly to prove her independence, but also to escape the constant feeling of being the secondary daughter. In Boston, she could be just Kelly, not Patricia's daughter from her first marriage or Amanda's older stepsister. She could build her own identity without the weight of comparison. Her work became her refuge. Kelly had a gift for understanding what her clients needed before they could articulate it themselves. She could take a small business owner's vague vision of something modern but approachable and transform it into a logo that captured their essence perfectly. Her portfolio grew steadily, filled with projects that showcased not just her technical skills, but her ability to tell stories through design. But success in her professional life couldn't fill the hollow space where family support should have been. Kelly watched her friends navigate career changes with the safety net of family encouragement, saw them make bold moves knowing they had parents who would cheer them on or catch them if they fell. She'd learned to be her own cheerleader, her own safety net, but some nights, the weight of carrying everything alone felt crushing. The loneliness was most acute during family holidays. While her friends traveled home to familiar bedrooms and favorite family recipes, Kelly usually volunteered to work, telling herself she preferred the quiet and the extra income. But the truth was more complicated. Going home meant navigating the delicate dynamics of her blended family, where she often felt like a guest in what was supposed to be her own home.
Patricia tried, in her way. She'd call on Kelly's birthday, send cards at Christmas, ask about her work with genuine interest. But there was always an invisible wall between them, built from years of missed connections and unspoken resentments. Kelly couldn't pinpoint exactly when it had started, but somewhere along the way, she'd stopped expecting her mother to really see her. The apartment felt especially quiet that April morning as Kelly worked on a logo design for a small nonprofit. The organization helped young adults aging out of the foster care system, and something about their mission resonated deeply with her. She found herself putting extra care into every curve of the letters, every shade of color, wanting to create something that would give these young people hope. Her phone rang, interrupting her concentration. Patricia's name flashed on the screen, and Kelly felt the familiar mix of hope and wariness that accompanied her mother's calls. They hadn't spoken in almost 2 months. "Hi, Mom," Kelly answered, saving her work and pushing back from her desk. "Kelly, honey, how are you? I was just thinking about you." Patricia's voice sounded bright, almost forced in its cheerfulness. "I'm good, just working on some projects. How are you and Robert?" "Oh, we're wonderful. Robert's been working in the garden. You should see the tomatoes he's growing this year. And Amanda got another promotion. She's managing her whole department now." Kelly made the appropriate congratulatory sounds while staring out her window at the brick wall of the building next door. The conversation followed its familiar pattern: updates about Patricia's life, glowing reports about Amanda, and polite questions about Kelly's work that never quite invited deeper sharing. But then Patricia surprised her. "I was actually calling because Mother's Day is coming up, and I know we haven't seen each other in so long. I miss you, Kelly. I really do." The unexpected vulnerability in her mother's voice caught Kelly off guard. For a moment, the wall between them seemed to crack just slightly. "I miss you too, Mom," Kelly heard herself saying, and she meant it. "I know it's a lot to ask with your work and everything, but would you maybe consider coming home for Mother's Day? Just for the weekend? It would mean so much to me." Kelly felt her heart speed up. It had been over a year since she'd been in Phoenix, and that visit had been brief and stilted. But something in her mother's voice, a longing that matched her own, made her want to say yes. I'd like that," Kelly said slowly. "Let me check flights in my schedule." "Really? Oh, Kelly, that would be wonderful. We could have brunch on Sunday, maybe go to that little cafe you used to like. Just us." The promise of one-on-one time with her mother, away from the usual family dynamics, felt like a gift Kelly had been waiting years to receive. For the first time in months, she felt a flutter of genuine excitement about going home. After they hung up, Kelly sat in her quiet apartment feeling something shift inside her chest. Maybe this could be the start of rebuilding their relationship. Maybe the distance and time apart had given them both perspective they needed. Maybe finally her mother was ready to see her, really see her. She opened her laptop and started searching for flights from Boston to Phoenix, her heart full of possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to imagine in years. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now,
back to the story. The weeks following Patricia's phone call transformed Kelly's mundane April routine into a whirlwind of anticipation and careful planning. She found herself humming while she worked, something Sarah noticed immediately when she returned from her coffee run that first morning. "Someone's in a good mood," Sarah observed, setting Kelly's usual vanilla latte on the cluttered desk. "Did that nonprofit client finally approve your designs?" Kelly looked up from her laptop screen, where she'd been comparing flight prices between 3 different booking sites. "Better than that. My mom invited me home for Mother's Day. Actually invited me, not just a courtesy call asking if I might be in the area." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. Kelly rarely talked about her family, and when she did, it was usually with the careful neutrality of someone discussing distant relatives. "Wow, that's huge, right? When's the last time you went home?" 14 months ago, Kelly said without hesitation. "Robert's 60th birthday party. I stayed for exactly 36 hours. "And you're excited about this?" Kelly saved her work and spun around in her desk chair to face Sarah fully. "I think I am." She sounded different on the phone, like she actually wanted me there, not just felt obligated to ask. She mentioned having brunch, just the two of us. Sarah studied Kelly's face, recognizing the cautious hope that her friend tried so hard to hide. "That does sound different. What changed, do you think?" "Maybe distance gave us both perspective. Maybe she misses me as much as I miss her." Kelly shrugged, but her voice carried an undertone of vulnerability. "Or maybe I'm reading too much into a 5-minute phone conversation." "Only one way to find out," Sarah said, settling onto Kelly's small couch with her own coffee. "When are you thinking of going?" Kelly pulled up the calendar on her phone. "Mother's Day weekend is May 12th this year. If I fly out Friday night, I could have all Saturday to spend with her before the actual holiday on Sunday." The next 3 weeks became a careful orchestration of preparation. Kelly cleared her schedule, pushing deadline-flexible projects back and finishing urgent ones early. She found herself putting extra care into her work, as if succeeding professionally might somehow translate to success in her personal life. The nonprofit logo she'd been working on came together beautifully, a stylized tree with roots that formed hands reaching toward each other, symbolizing connection and support. Shopping for the perfect gift consumed more mental energy than Kelly expected. She wandered through Boston's boutiques and department stores, rejecting items that felt too generic, too expensive, or too intimate for their fragile relationship. Finally, in a small artisan shop in Cambridge, she found it, a delicate silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a compass rose. The card she'd write would say something about always finding your way back to the people who matter most. Kelly also spent considerable time planning her wardrobe for the trip. She wanted to look successful and put together, but not so polished that she seemed to be showing off. After trying on half her closet, she settled on a simple but elegant midi dress in navy blue for their brunch, paired with the leather jacket she'd saved up to buy the previous fall. For casual time, she packed her favorite jeans and a soft cream sweater that Sarah always complimented. The flight booking itself became an unexpected emotional minefield. Kelly found herself staring at the round-trip ticket confirmation, Flight 1247, departing Logan at 8:15 p.m. on Friday, May 10th. Return flight on Monday evening. She decided to extend the weekend by 1 day, hoping for more time to reconnect with Patricia. The 3-day trip represented a significant expense for her freelance budget, but it felt like an investment in something precious and fragile. As the departure date approached, Kelly's excitement began mixing with familiar anxiety. Late-night phone conversations with Sarah helped her process the complicated emotions surfacing around the visit. "What if it's the same as always?" Kelly asked one Thursday evening, pacing her small living room while Sarah folded laundry on the couch. "What if I get there and within 2 hours I remember why I moved 3,000 miles away?" "Then at least you'll know," Sarah replied pragmatically. "But what if it's not the same? What if this is actually the fresh start you've both been needing?" Kelly paused her pacing. "That might be even scarier." "Why?" "Because then I'd have to figure out how to have a real relationship with her. I've gotten pretty good at keeping people at arm's length." "Not everyone, Kel. You let me in."
"That's different. You chose me. You didn't get stuck with me through biology and bad timing." The conversation stayed with Kelly through her final work week. She found herself noticing families everywhere. Mothers and daughters sharing lunch at the cafe downstairs, a woman helping her adult daughter move apartments down the street. Even the tender way an older woman corrected her grown son's grammar during a phone call Kelly overheard on the subway. Patricia called twice during those final weeks, brief conversations that nonetheless felt different from their usual pattern. Instead of focusing primarily on Amanda's achievements or Robert's projects, Patricia asked specific questions about Kelly's work, remembered details from their previous conversation, and even shared a funny story about her book club that had nothing to do with anyone else in the family. "I've been thinking about that cafe I mentioned," Patricia said during their Wednesday evening call. Le Petit Soleil. Do you remember it? We went there when you visited during your sophomore year of college. Kelly did remember, though she was surprised her mother did. It had been one of the few times during that strained visit when they'd managed to have an actual conversation, discussing Kelly's classes and future plans without the usual undercurrent of tension. "I remember," Kelly said. "You ordered the croque monsieur and complained that it was too salty." Patricia laughed, a genuine sound that Kelly hadn't heard in years. "And you got that enormous fruit salad and ate every single piece. I was so impressed. You were always such a picky eater as a child." The memory felt warm and uncomplicated, a rare jewel in their shared history. Kelly found herself smiling as she tucked it away carefully. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Boston spring weather that matched Kelly's nervous energy. She double-checked her packing list, confirmed her Uber pickup time, and tried to focus on client emails to keep her mind busy. Sarah had offered to drive her to the airport, but Kelly preferred the quiet time alone to mentally prepare. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Weather's beautiful here. Perfect for our weekend together." Kelly screenshotted the message, something she had never done with any of her mother's previous texts. There was something about the exclamation points and the phrase, "our weekend together," that felt worth preserving. The Uber ride to Logan Airport passed in a blur of familiar Boston neighborhoods, giving way to tunnel lighting and airport signs. Kelly's stomach fluttered with the particular combination of excitement and terror that comes with high-stakes hope. She had built up this weekend in her mind as a potential turning point. But what if her expectations were too high? What if she was setting herself up for disappointment? As she checked in for her flight and made her way through security, Kelly tried to manage her expectations. The best-case scenario would be genuine connection and the foundation for a stronger relationship. The worst-case scenario would be confirmation that their relationship was exactly what it had always been, polite but distant. But even that wouldn't be the end of the world. At least she'd know where she stood. Boarding her flight, Kelly settled into her window seat and watched Boston disappear beneath the clouds. 5 hours and 3 time zones later, she'd find out whether her mother's invitation represented a genuine desire for connection or simply good intentions that would crumble under the weight of old patterns and unresolved history. The Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport buzzed with late-night energy as Kelly's flight touched down at 11:47 p.m. local time. The 3-hour time difference made her body feel like it was nearly 3 a.m., but adrenaline kept her alert as she navigated the familiar terminals she hadn't walked through in over a year. The dry desert air hit her immediately upon stepping outside, so different from Boston's humid spring that it felt like entering another world entirely. Kelly had planned to take a rideshare to her hotel, wanting to maintain some independence and avoid the awkwardness of late-night pickup logistics. She'd booked a modest but clean room at a Hampton Inn about 15 minutes from her mother's house in Scottsdale. Close enough to feel connected, but far enough to have her own space if emotions ran high. The hotel room was exactly what she'd expected, bland but comfortable, with desert-themed artwork and a view of the parking lot. Kelly set her suitcase on the luggage rack and plugged in her phone, which immediately buzzed with messages. Sarah had texted, "Safe travels, can't wait to hear how it goes." There was also a message from Patricia, sent 2 hours earlier. "Hope you have a smooth flight. Sleep well, and I'll see you tomorrow. So excited." Kelly stared at that last message for a long moment. So excited, with an exclamation point. Her mother rarely used exclamation points in texts, preferring the formal punctuation of her generation. The enthusiasm felt genuine, and Kelly found herself smiling despite her exhaustion. She had planned to take a ride-share to her hotel, wanting to maintain some independence and avoid the awkwardness of late-night pickup logistics. She'd booked a modest but clean room at a Hampton Inn about 15 minutes from her mother's house in Scottsdale. Close enough to feel connected, but far enough to have her own space if emotions ran high. The hotel room was exactly what she'd expected, bland but comfortable, with desert-themed artwork and a view of the parking lot. Kelly set her suitcase on the luggage rack and plugged in her phone, which immediately buzzed with messages. Sarah had texted, "Safe travels, can't wait to hear how it goes." There was also a message from Patricia, sent 2 hours earlier. "Hope you have a smooth flight. Sleep well, and I'll see you tomorrow. So excited." Kelly stared at that last message for a long moment. So excited, with an exclamation point. Her mother rarely used exclamation points in texts, preferring the formal punctuation of her generation. The enthusiasm felt genuine, and Kelly found herself smiling despite her exhaustion. She'd planned to sleep in on Saturday morning, but her internal clock had other ideas. By 6 a.m. Phoenix time, Kelly was wide awake, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling and running through potential conversation topics for the day ahead. She'd prepared mental talking points during the flight, questions about Patricia's book club, updates on her own design work, neutral topics that could lead to deeper sharing if the mood felt right. After a long shower and careful attention to her appearance, Kelly selected the cream sweater and dark jeans she'd packed. She wanted to look approachable but put together, the visual equivalent of being open to connection while maintaining her sense of self. Patricia had suggested they meet at 10 a.m. for coffee before exploring some of Scottsdale's art galleries, a plan that surprised Kelly since her mother had never shown particular interest in art during Kelly's childhood. But people changed, and Kelly was determined to approach the weekend with curiosity rather than assumptions based on old patterns. The coffee shop Patricia had chosen was new to Kelly, a trendy place called Sunrise Roasters in Old Town Scottsdale. Kelly arrived 10 minutes early, a habit ingrained from years of freelance client meetings, and immediately spotted her mother through the large front windows. Patricia Smith sat at a corner table, wearing a flowing turquoise blouse that complemented her silver hair, which she'd grown out since Kelly last saw her. She looked relaxed in a way Kelly hadn't seen in years, less rigid, somehow softer around the edges. When Patricia spotted Kelly approaching, her face lit up with unmistakable joy. "Kelly!" Patricia stood and embraced her daughter, holding on for a few beats longer than their usual polite hugs. "You look wonderful, honey. That sweater is beautiful on you." "Thanks, Mom. You look great, too. I love what you've done with your hair." They settled into their seats, and for the first few minutes, conversation flowed more naturally than Kelly had dared hope. Patricia asked about Kelly's flight, her hotel, whether she'd eaten breakfast. Kelly found herself relaxing into the familiar rhythm of her mother's care, remembering how Patricia had always been most comfortable expressing love through practical concern. "I have to confess something," Patricia said after they'd ordered their drinks. "I've been nervous about today all week. Not nervous in a bad way, just it feels important, you know?" Kelly felt her chest tighten with emotion. "I've been nervous too. Good nervous, I think. We haven't had much one-on-one time in recent years. I realized I don't know nearly enough about your life in Boston, your work, your friends." Patricia leaned forward slightly. "I want to know, Kelly. I want to understand who you've become." The sincerity in her mother's voice caught Kelly off guard. She'd prepared for polite small talk, not this kind of direct emotional honesty. "I'd like that too, Mom. There's a lot I'd love to share with you." Over the next hour, as they sipped their lattes and shared a blueberry scone, Kelly found herself opening up in ways she hadn't with her mother since high school. She told Patricia about her freelance business, describing the satisfaction of helping small businesses tell their stories through design. She talked about Sarah's friendship, how having a chosen sister had taught her about different kinds of family bonds. Patricia listened with the kind of focused attention Kelly remembered from childhood bedtime stories, asking follow-up questions that showed she was truly engaged. When Kelly mentioned the nonprofit logo she had just completed, Patricia's eyes sparked with interest. "What kind of nonprofit?" Patricia asked.
They help young adults aging out of foster care. A lot of these kids turn 18 and suddenly they have no support system, no family to fall back on. The organization provides mentorship, job training, even temporary housing sometimes. That sounds like incredibly important work. What drew you to take that project? Kelly hesitated, then decided on honesty. I think I identified with feeling like you don't quite belong anywhere, like you have to figure everything out on your own. Patricia's expression grew thoughtful, and for a moment Kelly worried she'd revealed too much. But instead of defensiveness, she saw recognition in her mother's eyes. I think I understand that feeling more than you might expect, Patricia said quietly. They moved on to touring the art galleries Patricia had mentioned, and Kelly discovered her mother had developed a genuine appreciation for contemporary Southwestern art. Patricia had even taken a watercolor class at the local community center, something that delighted Kelly since creativity had never been part of her mother's identity during Kelly's childhood. When did you start painting? Kelly asked as they admired a landscape featuring dramatic saguaro cacti silhouetted against a sunset sky. About 2 years ago. I was feeling restless, like I needed something that was just mine, you know? Robert has his garden, Amanda has her career success, and I realized I'd spent so many years being defined by my relationships that I'd lost track of my own interests. The admission surprised Kelly. She'd always seen her mother as supremely confident in her role as wife and mother, never questioning her place in the world. Do you enjoy it? The painting? Patricia smiled, looking almost shy. I'm terrible at it. But yes, I love it. There's something liberating about being bad at something and doing it anyway, just because it brings you joy. They had lunch at a small bistro with outdoor seating where Patricia continued to surprise Kelly with her curiosity and insight. She asked about Kelly's dating life with more genuine interest than judgment, shared funny stories from her book club that revealed a dry sense of humor Kelly had forgotten her mother possessed. The afternoon flew by in a way that reminded Kelly of the rare good days from her childhood, times when she and Patricia had connected as people, rather than just fulfilling the roles of mother and daughter. As they walked through a sculpture garden, Kelly felt something loosening in her chest, a knot and defensive tension she'd carried for years beginning to unwind. I have to ask, Kelly said as they sat on a bench beneath a mesquite tree, what made you reach out? Why now? Patricia was quiet for a long moment, watching a fountain where children were playing while their parents chatted nearby. Honestly, I think it was my painting class. There's this woman there, Margaret, whose daughter lives in Seattle. Margaret talks about her constantly, not bragging, just sharing. Love, you know? Pure love and admiration for who her daughter is as a person. Patricia turned to look at Kelly directly. I think I realized I do the same thing when I talk about Amanda, and that's fine. I'm proud of her. But I also realized I rarely talk about you that way. And it's not because I'm not proud. It's because I don't know you well enough to share the wonderful things about who you are as a person. Kelly felt tears prick her eyes. Mom, I don't want to be strangers who share DNA, Kelly. I want to know my daughter, the brilliant, independent, creative woman you've become. I want to brag about your accomplishments to my book club friends. I want to call you just to chat, not because it's your birthday or a holiday. The vulnerability in Patricia's voice was unlike anything Kelly had heard from her mother before. This wasn't the careful, formal woman who made duty calls and sent generic greeting cards. This was someone genuinely reaching across the distance that had grown between them. I want that too, Kelly managed, her voice thick with emotion. I've wanted it for years, but I didn't know how to bridge the gap. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fountain and processing the weight of honesty they'd shared. Kelly felt like they were standing at the edge of something new, not erasing the past or pretending old hurts hadn't happened, but choosing to move forward differently. As the sun began to set, painting the desert sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Patricia suggested they head back to her house for dinner. Robert's visiting his sister in Tucson until tomorrow. I thought we could order takeout, maybe look at some old photo albums. Just us. Kelly agreed eagerly, feeling like the weekend was finally becoming what she had hoped for, a genuine reconnection with her mother built on mutual respect and curiosity rather than obligation. As they drove through the desert landscape towards Patricia's house, Kelly allowed herself to feel optimistic about what Sunday might bring, imagining a Mother's Day that would mark the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship. She had no way of knowing that in less than 24 hours, that optimism would be shattered completely.
Kelly woke up Sunday morning with a sense of anticipation she hadn't felt in years. The hotel room was bathed in golden Arizona sunlight, and her phone showed a text from Patricia sent just an hour earlier. "Good morning, sweetheart. Looking forward to our Mother's Day brunch. See you at 11 a.m. Love you." The casual "love you" at the end made Kelly's heart skip. Patricia rarely ended their communications with explicit affection, usually opting for more formal closings like "take care" or simply her name. This felt like a continuation of the emotional breakthrough they'd experienced yesterday. Kelly took extra care getting ready, selecting the navy midi dress she'd brought specifically for Mother's Day brunch. She paired it with delicate gold jewelry and the leather jacket that made her feel confident and put together. The compass rose necklace she'd bought for Patricia sat in its gift box on the hotel dresser, wrapped in tissue paper with a card she'd written and rewritten 3 times. The drive to Patricia's house through Scottsdale's winding residential streets felt different this morning. Instead of the nervous anxiety that had accompanied her arrival, Kelly felt a warm sense of belonging she hadn't associated with this place in years. The desert landscape looked more beautiful somehow, the saguaro cacti standing like ancient sentinels and the mountains in the distance painted purple and gold by the morning light. Patricia lived in a planned community called Desert Winds, where adobe-style houses sat behind perfectly manicured desert gardens. Kelly had always found the neighborhood a bit sterile, too planned and artificial compared to the organic chaos of Boston's neighborhoods. But today, even the orderly palm trees and decorative gravel seemed charming. She pulled into the familiar driveway at exactly 11 a.m., noticing that Robert's pickup truck wasn't there. Good. Patricia had mentioned he'd be back from visiting his sister later today, which meant they'd have more precious time alone together. But as Kelly approached the front door, something felt off. The house was completely silent. No music playing, no sounds of movement inside. The living room windows that usually glowed with warm light were dark behind their sheer curtains. Kelly pressed the doorbell and waited, adjusting the gift box in her hands. After a minute with no response, she tried again, holding the button longer this time. Still nothing. "Mom?" she called, knocking on the door. "It's Kelly. I'm here for brunch." Silence. Kelly pulled out her phone and called Patricia's number. She could hear the phone ringing inside the house, but no one answered. After 5 rings, it went to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Patricia. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible." "Mom, it's me," Kelly said after the beep, trying to keep her voice light. "I'm at your front door. Maybe you stepped out quickly? I'll wait a few minutes." Kelly walked around to the backyard, wondering if Patricia might be in the garden. The gate was unlocked, which wasn't unusual, but the backyard was as empty as the front of the house. Robert's beloved tomato plants stood in neat rows, but there was no sign of life anywhere. Back at the front door, Kelly tried calling again. This time the phone seemed to be turned off. It went straight to voicemail without ringing. A cold knot began forming in Kelly's stomach. Had there been an emergency? Was Patricia in the hospital? Had something happened to Robert? Kelly sat on the front porch steps, trying to think logically. If there had been a medical emergency, surely someone would have called her. Patricia had her number, knew she was in town. Unless Patricia had been hurt and couldn't call, or... "Kelly, is that you?" Kelly looked up to see Mrs. Henderson, Patricia's elderly neighbor, walking across the street with her small terrier on a leash. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Henderson," Kelly said, standing and smoothing her dress. "Yes, it's me. I'm supposed to meet Mom for brunch, but she doesn't seem to be home." Mrs. Henderson's expression shifted to something Kelly couldn't quite read. Surprise, mixed with what looked like discomfort. "Oh, dear," Mrs. Henderson said slowly. "I saw Patricia and Robert leave quite early this morning, around 7, I think. They had suitcases." Suitcases? Kelly felt the knot in her stomach tighten. Did they say where they were going? "Well, I didn't speak to them directly, but..." Mrs. Henderson hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "I did see a young woman with them. Pretty girl, dark hair. I assumed it was Amanda." Kelly's world tilted. "Amanda was with them? I'm so sorry, dear. I thought you knew. Patricia mentioned yesterday that family was coming to visit for Mother's Day. I just assumed..." Mrs. Henderson trailed off, obviously realizing she was delivering unwelcome news. Kelly felt like she might be sick. Did you happen to see which direction they went?" "North on Scottsdale Road towards the highway." "I'm really sorry, Kelly. I'm sure there's some explanation." Kelly thanked Mrs. Henderson and waited until the older woman had gone inside before allowing herself to fully absorb what was happening. Her mother had left, on Mother's Day, with Amanda, without a word to Kelly, who was supposed to be having brunch with her in exactly this moment. She tried calling Patricia again, and when it went straight to voicemail, she hung up without leaving a message. What could she possibly say? Kelly walked back to her rental car on unsteady legs, her mind racing through possibilities. Maybe there had been a family emergency Amanda was involved in. Maybe Patricia had tried to call, but Kelly's phone had died. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding that would be cleared up in an hour. But as she sat in the car, staring at the empty house, those hopeful explanations felt increasingly hollow. The suitcases suggested this wasn't a quick emergency run. The early departure time meant it was planned, and if Patricia had wanted Kelly to know, she would have called. Kelly drove back to her hotel in a daze, replaying every moment of yesterday's conversations. Had she missed something? Some sign that Patricia was just going through the motions, being polite? The woman who had opened up about her painting class, who had said she wanted to know Kelly better, who had ended this morning's text with "love you," had all of that been fake? Back in her hotel room, Kelly sank onto the bed, still wearing her carefully chosen Mother's Day dress. She stared at the compass rose necklace, still in its gift box, and felt foolish for the hours she had spent selecting it, for the heartfelt card expressing her gratitude for their reconnection. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "How's the reunion going? Hope you and your mom are having a wonderful time." Kelly stared at the message, unsure how to respond. How could she explain that she was sitting alone in a hotel room while her mother was apparently celebrating Mother's Day with her other daughter? The afternoon crawled by in a haze of confusion and growing hurt. Kelly kept checking her phone, hoping for some explanation from Patricia, but nothing came. She considered calling Robert, but what would she say? "Hi, do you know why my mother abandoned our Mother's Day plans to spend the holiday with Amanda instead?" By 4 p.m., Kelly couldn't stand the uncertainty anymore. She decided to drive back to Patricia's house, hoping they'd returned and this could all be resolved. Maybe there was a simple explanation she wasn't seeing. But the house remained empty. Robert's truck still absent from the driveway. Kelly sat in her car outside the house where she had spent so many uncomfortable holiday visits, feeling more alone than she had in years. Her phone rang and Kelly's heart leapt. Finally, Patricia calling to explain, but the caller ID showed Sarah's name instead. "Hey! How's the reunion going?" Sarah asked cheerfully. Kelly found herself crying before she could form words to respond. "Kel? What happened?" She left me here. She went somewhere with Amanda and Robert for Mother's Day, and she didn't even tell me." "What? That doesn't make sense. You said she called you, invited you specifically." "I thought she did. I thought yesterday was real. We had this amazing day, Sarah. She opened up about wanting to know me better, about being proud of me, and then she just disappeared." Sarah was quiet for a moment, and I could hear the confusion in her voice when she finally spoke. "Did you try calling her?" 3 times. Her phone goes straight to voicemail now. "Maybe there's an emergency you don't know about." I wanted to believe that, but the evidence didn't support it. The neighbor saw them leave early this morning with suitcases. This was planned, Sarah. Whatever yesterday was, it wasn't enough to make her choose me over Amanda for the actual holiday. The realization hit Kelly like a physical blow. She wasn't the daughter Patricia wanted to celebrate Mother's Day with. She was the consolation prize, good enough for a practice run on Saturday, but not worthy of the main event. As Kelly sat outside the empty house in her wrinkled Mother's Day dress, the compass rose necklace mocking her from the passenger seat, she felt something fundamental shifting inside her. The hope she had carried from Boston, the optimism from yesterday's breakthrough, the dream of finally having a real relationship with her mother,
All of it, crumbling into something harder and more painful than simple disappointment. This was betrayal, plain and simple, and Kelly had no idea how she was supposed to survive it.
Kelly spent Sunday evening in her hotel room, alternating between tears and numbness. She'd changed out of her Mother's Day dress hours ago, throwing it carelessly into her suitcase along with any hope of salvaging the weekend. The compass rose necklace sat on the nightstand, its symbolism now bitter. Apparently, some people weren't worth finding your way back to. Room service dinner sat untouched on the small table while Kelly stared out the window at the Phoenix skyline. The city lights blurred through her tears as she replayed every moment of Saturday, searching for clues she might have missed. Had Patricia's warmth been an act? Had the vulnerability been calculated manipulation? Her phone showed 17 missed calls from Sarah, who'd been checking in every hour since their devastating conversation. Kelly couldn't bring herself to answer. What was there to say that wouldn't sound like self-pity? At 9 p.m., Kelly finally decided she couldn't hide forever. She called Sarah back. "Thank God," Sarah answered immediately. "I've been worried sick. How are you holding up?" "I keep thinking about something she said yesterday, about wanting to brag about me to her book club friends, about calling just to chat. Was any of that real?" "I think it was real in the moment. But Kel, maybe this isn't about you at all. Maybe something happened with Amanda that changed everything." Kelly had considered this possibility all afternoon. Then why didn't she call me? Why not explain? Even if there was some crisis, you don't just abandon someone who flew across the country to see you. You're right. That part is inexcusable. The validation helped, even though it didn't ease the pain. Kelly found herself thinking about her clients, the small business owners who trusted her with their most important projects, who'd become like an extended professional family over the years. They valued her work, respected her opinions, celebrated her successes. Why had she thought she needed her mother's approval when she already had people who truly saw her worth? "Kelly, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Always. Do you think I'm the kind of person who's easy to leave behind? Like, is there something about me that makes people think I'll just accept whatever scraps they offer?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Kelly Marie Smith, if you weren't 3,000 miles away right now, I would shake some sense into you. You are the most loyal, thoughtful, talented person I know. You're the friend who remembers my presentations and sends encouragement texts. You're the designer who stays up until 2 a.m. perfecting a logo because you care about your client's success. You're the person who sees the best in everyone, sometimes to your own detriment." Kelly felt fresh tears, but these were different. Not the bitter tears of abandonment, but something warmer. "The problem isn't you, Kel. The problem is that you keep giving your energy to people who don't deserve it while taking for granted the people who do." After they hung up, Kelly sat with Sarah's words. It was true. She had built a life in Boston surrounded by people who valued her. Her clients trusted her creative vision. Her neighbors in Allston waved when they saw her, asked about her projects. The barista at her favorite coffee shop knew her order and always asked how her weekend was. When had she started believing that her mother's approval was more important than all of that? Kelly pulled out her laptop and opened a new document. At the top, she typed, "People who actually see me." Then she began to list everyone in her life who had shown genuine interest in her well-being, who celebrated her successes, who made her feel valued for who she was, rather than who they wanted her to be. Sari's name went at the top, followed by her regular clients like Marcus Chen, who ran a sustainable clothing startup and always asked for Kelly's input on big decisions beyond just design work. Then there was Mrs. Rivera from the apartment downstairs, who brought Kelly homemade tamales every Christmas and proudly showed off Kelly's business cards to her friends. The list grew longer than Kelly expected. Her yoga instructor, who always checked in when Kelly missed classes, the woman who ran the local print shop, who had become a mentor of sorts in small business management, even David, the guy she dated briefly last fall. They'd realized they were better as friends, but he still texted funny memes and remembered her project deadlines. As Kelly wrote, she realized she'd been so focused on the family that didn't fully embrace her that she'd undervalued the community that did. These people hadn't known her since birth, hadn't been obligated by DNA to care about her, but they'd chosen to anyway. Wasn't that more meaningful than biological lottery? The next morning, Kelly woke with surprising clarity. Her flight wasn't until evening, which gave her the entire day to figure out what came next. She could spend it wallowing in self-pity, or she could use it to take back some control. Kelly showered, dressed in comfortable jeans and her favorite sweater, and made a decision. She was going to leave Phoenix with more than just disappointment. First stop, a small cafe in downtown Phoenix that she'd researched the night before. Kelly ordered coffee and a breakfast sandwich, then opened her laptop. If she was going to turn this disaster into something productive, she needed to channel her emotions into her work. She started designing, not for a client, but for herself, a logo for a business that didn't exist yet, something that represented resilience, independence, the strength to build your own family from the people who choose to love you. The design that emerged surprised her. It wasn't angry or defensive, but hopeful. A stylized tree with deep roots and branches that reached toward the sky, but instead of leaves, the branches ended in small stars. Growth despite difficult soil, beauty that created its own light. As Kelly worked, she found herself thinking about the nonprofit she designed for back in Boston, the organization helping foster kids transition to independence. Those young adults had learned the same lesson Kelly was learning now. Sometimes the family you build is stronger than the one you're born into. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown Phoenix number. "Kelly, this is Amanda. Mom told me you're in town. Can we talk?" Kelly stared at the message for a full minute. Amanda wanted to talk. The golden daughter, the one Patricia had chosen to spend Mother's Day with instead of Kelly. Every instinct told Kelly to ignore the message, to protect herself from further hurt. But curiosity won. Kelly typed back, "I'm at Copper's Star Cafe on Central. If you want to talk, I'll be here for another hour." 20 minutes later, Amanda walked through the cafe door. She looked exactly like Kelly remembered, petite and energetic, with Patricia's dark hair and Robert's warm brown eyes. But something was different about her expression. Instead of the confident smile Kelly associated with her stepsister, Amanda looked nervous, almost guilty. "Kelly," Amanda said, sliding into the booth across from her, "I'm so glad you agreed to see me." "Where's Mom?" Kelly asked without preamble. Amanda's face fell. "She doesn't know I'm here. She thinks I'm at the hotel spa." "Hotel?" "We're staying at the Phoenician. Robert surprised Mom with a weekend getaway for Mother's Day." Amanda paused, studying Kelly's face. "You don't know, do you?" "Know what?" Amanda took a deep breath. "Kelly, Mom didn't choose to spend Mother's Day with me instead of you. She doesn't even know you're in Phoenix." The words hit Kelly like a physical blow. "What do you mean she doesn't know?" "She's been planning this weekend with you for weeks. She's been so excited, talking about reconnecting, about the art galleries you two visited yesterday. But Robert arranged this surprise trip months ago, booked the hotel, made reservations. When he told her about it Friday night, she was devastated." Kelly felt the world shifting around her. "Then why didn't she call me? Why didn't she explain?" "She tried. She called you Saturday night after you dropped her off, but it went straight to voicemail. She tried texting too, but her phone has been acting up all weekend. Robert kept saying you'd understand, that family comes first, that she could reschedule with you." Kelly pulled out her phone, scrolling through her call log and messages. No missed calls from Patricia, no texts. "Kelly, I never got any calls or messages from her." Amanda's expression shifted to horror. "Oh God, Kelly, she thinks you're ignoring her. She's been crying all weekend saying she finally had a breakthrough with you and now she's ruined it." The revelation reframed everything. Patricia hadn't abandoned Kelly. She'd been trapped between competing obligations, trying to honor both her daughter and her husband.
And when her attempts to communicate had failed, she'd assumed Kelly was angry and unreachable. "There's something else," Amanda continued. "Something I need you to know about why this weekend was so important to her." Kelly waited, her heart pounding. "She's been in therapy, Kelly, for almost a year, working through her feelings about the divorce from your dad, about how the remarriage affected you, about all the ways she thinks she failed you as a mother." Kelly felt tears starting again, but these were different from yesterday's bitter disappointment. "She loves you so much, Kelly. She just doesn't know how to show it in a way that doesn't feel awkward or forced. Yesterday was the first time in years she felt like she was getting it right." As Kelly spoke, she realized she was experiencing her breakthrough moment. Not the reconciliation with her mother she had expected, but something equally important. The understanding that relationships are messy, that people can hurt each other while trying to love each other, that sometimes the stories we tell ourselves about why we're not loved are completely wrong. Patricia hadn't chosen Amanda over Kelly. She'd been caught between impossible circumstances, and her attempts to fix things had been lost in the chaos of miscommunication and technology failures.
Amanda's revelation changed everything, but Kelly's mind struggled to process the complete reversal of her understanding. For 24 hours, she'd believed her mother had deliberately abandoned her. Now she was learning that Patricia had been equally devastated, thinking Kelly was the one who'd pulled away. "Amanda," Kelly said slowly, "I need you to tell me exactly what happened from your perspective. Every detail." Amanda nodded, pulling out her own phone. "Let me show you something first." She scrolled through her messages and turned the screen toward Kelly. "These are texts from Mom over the weekend." Kelly read the messages, each one a punch to her chest. Saturday, 11:47 p.m. Had the most wonderful day with Kelly. Finally feel like we're connecting as adults. So grateful. Sunday, 7:23 a.m. Trying to reach Kelly about change of plans, but phone keeps going to voicemail. Hope she's not upset. Sunday, 10:15 a.m. Kelly won't answer calls or texts. Robert says she probably just slept in, but I'm worried I said something wrong yesterday. Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Still no response from Kelly. I think I've ruined everything. Kelly's hands trembled as she read, "These timestamps? I was sitting outside your mom's house when she sent that last one, thinking she'd abandoned me. Kelly, she was 40 minutes away at the hotel, crying in the bathroom because she thought you hated her again." Amanda's voice was thick with emotion. "She kept saying she'd finally figured out how to be your mom, and then she'd messed it up immediately." The tragic comedy of errors was almost too much to bear. Kelly thought about all the wasted tears, all the self-doubt, and all the assumptions that had poisoned her entire Sunday. "But why didn't Robert understand how important our plans were?" Kelly asked. Amanda's expression darkened slightly. "That's complicated. Robert means well, but he's never really understood the dynamic between you and Mom. He sees family as family, blood relations that will always forgive each other no matter what. He doesn't get that some relationships need more careful handling." Kelly appreciated Amanda's honesty about her own father's blind spots. It would have been easy for Amanda to defend Robert completely. When Mom told him about your plans for Mother's Day brunch, he said something like, "Kelly will understand. Family is family. We can reschedule." But Mom kept insisting it was important to honor her commitment to you. So what happened? They compromised. Mom would try to reach you early Sunday morning to explain about the surprise trip and suggest meeting for dinner instead when they got back Monday. But when her phone started acting up and your phone seemed to be off, Robert convinced her you'd probably figured it out and made other plans. Kelly closed her eyes, imagining her mother's internal conflict. She had been trapped between disappointing her husband, who'd planned a romantic surprise months in advance, and potentially hurting her daughter, whom she was just beginning to reconnect with. "Amanda, I need to see her right now." "I was hoping you'd say that," Amanda smiled for the first time since arriving. "But first, there's something else you should know about why this reconnection with you matters so much to her." Kelly waited, sensing this was important. "Do you remember when your parents got divorced? You were about 13, I think." "Of course, it was horrible." Mom told me that the worst part for her wasn't losing Dad. It was watching you withdraw from her. She said you used to tell her everything. School drama, friend problems, your dreams about the future. But after the divorce, you started keeping everything inside. Kelly felt a stab of recognition. She did remember that shift, how she'd begin protecting herself emotionally by sharing less and less with both parents. She's blamed herself ever since. She thinks the divorce broke something between you two that she never figured out how to fix. Then, when she married Robert and you seemed to connect better with him initially, she felt even more like she'd failed you. This was a perspective Kelly had never considered. She'd been so focused on feeling replaced by Amanda that she'd never thought about how her own withdrawal might have affected Patricia. When you moved to Boston for college and then stayed, Mom convinced herself it was because you were happier without her in your daily life. She's been carrying that guilt for years. Amanda pulled up another text thread on her phone. Look at this conversation we had last month. Kelly read Patricia's messages to Amanda. I keep wondering what kind of mother Kelly needed me to be. Was I too controlling, not supportive enough? She built this amazing life in Boston, and I'm proud of her, but I can't shake the feeling that she did it despite me. Not because of anything I gave her.
She started therapy specifically to work on your relationship, Amanda continued. Her therapist has been helping her understand that some of what happened when you were younger was normal adolescent development, complicated by family stress, not personal rejection. Kelly thought about her own journey in Boston, how she'd gradually learned to trust Sarah's friendship, how she'd built professional relationships based on mutual respect. She'd grown into someone capable of healthy connections, but she'd never given her mother credit for any of the foundational love that had made that growth possible. I need to go to the hotel, Kelly said urgently, right now. They're not there. They went hiking at South Mountain. But Kelly, Amanda hesitated, maybe we should think about how to approach this. Mom is pretty fragile right now. She's convinced she's lost you again. Kelly understood Amanda's caution, but she couldn't wait another moment. Can you call her? Tell her you ran into me, that there was a miscommunication. I have a better idea. The hiking trail they chose is easy, more of a nature walk. If you're up for it, we could drive there and accidentally run into them. An hour later, Kelly found herself hiking a desert trail she'd never seen before, following Amanda toward what might be the most important conversation of her life. The physical activity helped calm her nerves, and the desert landscape provided a surprisingly peaceful backdrop for emotional preparation. There they are, Amanda said quietly, pointing ahead to where Patricia and Robert sat on a bench overlooking the valley. Even from a distance, Kelly could see the slump in her mother's shoulders, the defeated posture that suggested Patricia was carrying far more than just hiking fatigue. "Mom!" Amanda called, waving enthusiastically. "Look who I ran into!" Patricia's head snapped up, and even from 50 yards away, Kelly could see the shock and hope that crossed her mother's face. Patricia stood slowly, as if unsure whether Kelly was really there or a mirage created by guilt and wishful thinking. Kelly walked forward, closing the distance between them with measured steps. When she was close enough to see the tears already forming in Patricia's eyes, she spoke. "Mom, we need to talk about what happened this weekend." "Kelly, I'm so sorry. I tried to call. I tried to text. I know I ruined everything we built yesterday, but I want you to know." "Mom, stop." Kelly's voice was gentle but firm. "You didn't ruin anything, and you didn't abandon me. We just got caught in the world's worst case of miscommunication." Patricia's expression shifted from desperation to confusion. "But you didn't answer my calls." "Because I never got them. Your phone was malfunctioning, remember? And I spent all day yesterday thinking you'd chosen Amanda over me when really you were trying to figure out how to honor commitments to both of us." The relief that washed over Patricia's face was visible and immediate. She sagged back onto the bench as if the weight she had been carrying had suddenly lifted. "I thought I'd lost you again," Patricia whispered. "I thought I'd finally figured out how to be your mom and then destroyed it immediately." Kelly sat down beside her mother on the bench, looking out over the vast Arizona landscape. Mom, you didn't destroy anything, but we need to talk about how we got here, and we need to figure out how to move forward without all of these assumptions and misunderstandings. Robert, who had been standing awkwardly to the side, cleared his throat. I think I owe you an apology too, Kelly. I didn't understand how important your weekend plans were. Kelly turned to her stepfather, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. Robert, you were trying to do something nice for Mom. The problem wasn't your surprise. It was all of us not communicating clearly about what was happening. As they sat together on the mountain trail, Kelly realized this moment represented more than just clearing up a misunderstanding. It was the beginning of learning how to be a family that talked through problems instead of making assumptions about each other's motivations. The desert sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, and for the first time since arriving in Phoenix, Kelly felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The mountain trail conversation had cleared the air, but Kelly knew that real healing would require more than just understanding what went wrong over the weekend. As they made their way back down the hiking path in the gathering dusk, Patricia walking close beside her, Kelly realized they were about to face the ultimate test of their renewed relationship, confronting years of accumulated hurt and disappointment that had built the wall between them in the first place. Mom, Kelly said as they reached the parking area, I think we need to have a much longer conversation. Not just about this weekend, but about everything that's happened between us since I was a teenager. Patricia stopped walking, her face showing both hope and apprehension. Are you sure you want to do that? Some of those conversations might be difficult. The difficult ones are exactly the ones we need to have. We can't build something real on top of a foundation full of cracks. Robert, who had been quietly supportive throughout the trail reconciliation, stepped forward. Why don't you two use our house? Amanda and I can go grab dinner. Give you some privacy. Actually, Amanda interjected, I think I should be part of some of this conversation too. Our family dynamic affected Kelly, and I want to understand how. Kelly felt a surge of gratitude toward her stepsister. Amanda could have easily stayed out of the complicated emotional work ahead, but instead, she was choosing to be present for the messy process of rebuilding family relationships. An hour later, the three women sat in Patricia's living room, the same space where Kelly had spent so many uncomfortable holiday visits, but which now felt different somehow. Patricia had made tea, and the compass rose necklace sat on the coffee table between them, no longer a symbol of disappointment, but a reminder of intentions and hopes. I want to start, Patricia said, her hands wrapped around her tea mug as if anchoring herself, by acknowledging something I should have said years ago. Kelly, when I married Robert and we became a blended family, I don't think I handled the transition well. I was so worried about making Amanda feel welcome and secure that I may have made you feel like you were being replaced. Kelly felt her throat tighten. This was the acknowledgement she'd been waiting for since she was 15 years old. I remember feeling like Amanda was everything I wasn't. She was outgoing and social. She seemed to fit into our new family configuration effortlessly. And every time you praised her achievements, which you should have done, it felt like evidence that she was the daughter you'd rather have. Amanda looked stricken. Kelly, I had no idea you felt that way. I always thought you were the lucky one. You were older, more independent. You had this whole history with Mom that I could never be part of. But that history felt more like baggage than blessing. All my memories of being Mom's only child were tangled up with the divorce, with conflict and sadness. You got to be her daughter during the happy, stable years. Patricia set down her tea with trembling hands. Oh, Kelly, I never realized. I thought your independence was strength. I was proud of how self-sufficient you became,
But I should have seen that some of that independence was you protecting yourself because you didn't feel secure in our family. The conversation continued for hours, with each of them sharing perspectives that had never been voiced before. Kelly talked about feeling like a guest in her own home during visits, about watching Amanda and Patricia laugh together over inside jokes she wasn't part of, about the loneliness of building her life in Boston without family support. Patricia shared her own struggles. The guilt over the divorce, her fear that Kelly blamed her for the family breaking apart, her uncertainty about how to parent a teenager who seemed to need space rather than closeness. She talked about watching Kelly succeed professionally and feeling proud, but also sad that Kelly seemed to accomplish everything without needing her mother's guidance or encouragement. I kept telling myself, you were better off without me interfering. But the truth is, I was protecting myself from the possibility that you might not want my advice or support. Amanda contributed her own observations about growing up in the shadow of Kelly's achievements, feeling pressure to be the easy daughter because she sensed the complexity of Kelly's relationship with Patricia. She revealed that she'd often felt guilty about the attention she received, wondering if it came at Kelly's expense.
As the evening progressed, Kelly found herself sharing things she'd never expected to say out loud. She talked about the success of her Boston life, feeling hollow without family pride to share it with, about turning down client opportunities that would have required her to travel home because facing family dynamics felt too emotionally exhausting. There was this logo I designed last year for a Phoenix-based startup, Kelly said. They loved my work and wanted to bring me on as their creative director. It would have meant moving back to Arizona, being close to family again. But I turned it down because I couldn't imagine living in the same city as you while feeling like we were still strangers. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. You gave up a career opportunity because of our relationship? I gave up several opportunities, Kelly admitted, not just career ones. I've turned down relationships with men who wanted to meet my family because explaining our dynamic felt too complicated. I've skipped friends' family gatherings because watching healthy family relationships made me too sad about what we didn't have. The weight of those admissions settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Kelly had never fully acknowledged, even to herself, how much energy she'd spent working around the hole where family support should have been. Kelly, Amanda said quietly, do you resent me for having an easier relationship with Mom? Kelly considered the question carefully. I used to. But I've realized that wasn't fair to either of you. You didn't choose to be the daughter things came easier with, and Mom didn't consciously decide to have different relationships with us. We were all just trying to navigate an impossible situation without a roadmap. Patricia reached across the coffee table and took both of her daughter's hands. I want you both to know that I love you equally, but differently. Amanda, you came into my life when I was more settled, more confident as a parent. Kelly, you got me when I was young and making mistakes, but you also got all my firsts. First steps, first words, first day of school. You taught me how to be a mother. Kelly felt something shift in her chest, not the complete healing of old wounds, but the beginning of a new understanding. But here's what I need you both to know, Kelly said, her voice stronger now. I'm not that insecure teenager anymore. I've built a good life, developed real confidence in who I am. I don't need you to fix the past, Mom, but I do need to know that going forward, you see me as I actually am now, not as the difficult daughter you remember from 15 years ago. Patricia nodded emphatically. I saw glimpses of who you are now during our day at the Ganneries. I want to know that woman, the artist, the entrepreneur, the friend Sarah clearly adores. I want to know what makes you laugh, what projects you're excited about, what dreams you're working toward. And I want to know you too, not just as my mother, but as Patricia, the watercolor student, the book club member, the woman who's brave enough to go to therapy and examine her own patterns. Amanda squeezed both of their hands. Can I make a suggestion? What if we committed to regular family calls, not just holiday check-ins, but real conversations about what's happening in our lives? And what if we planned visits that aren't tied to obligations or special occasions, but just because we want to spend time together? Kelly felt a flutter of anxiety at the suggestion, old habits of emotional self-protection dying hard. But she also felt something else, genuine excitement about the possibility of having a real relationship with these women. I'd like that, Kelly said, but I need us to agree that we'll be honest with each other going forward. If something hurts, we say so. If we need space, we ask for it. If we're confused about something, we ask for clarification instead of making assumptions. Patricia nodded solemnly. No more guessing games, no more protecting each other's feelings at the expense of honesty. As they sat together in the living room where Kelly had felt like an outsider for so many years, they realized they had just accomplished something remarkable. They had looked directly at the painful patterns that had shaped their relationships and chosen to build something different going forward. The ultimate test wasn't whether they could avoid conflict or pretend the past hadn't happened. The ultimate test was whether they could be honest about the hurt while choosing love anyway. Whether they could acknowledge their failures while committing to do better. Looking at her mother and stepsister, Kelly felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The genuine belief that her family relationships could become a source of strength rather than disappointment. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't happen overnight. But for the first time since she was a child, Kelly felt like she truly belonged.
6 months after that life-changing Mother's Day weekend in Phoenix, Kelly Smith sat in her expanded Boston office space, reviewing the final designs for her most ambitious project yet. The nonprofit organization that helped foster youth transition to independence had been so impressed with her original logo that they'd hired her to create a complete rebranding package, including materials for a national expansion campaign. But this wasn't just any client project. It was the foundation for something much bigger that Kelly had been building since her return from Arizona. Her phone buzzed with a FaceTime call, and Patricia's smiling face filled the screen. These weekly video calls had become the highlight of Kelly's Wednesdays, a far cry from the stilted conversations they'd shared for years. "Hi, sweetheart," Patricia said, propping her phone against what Kelly now recognized as her mother's easel. Behind Patricia, Kelly could see a half-finished watercolor of desert wildflowers. "I'm just taking a break from painting. How's the big presentation prep going?" Kelly turned her laptop screen to show Patricia the project she was working on. "I'm putting the final touches on the pitch deck. Remember how we talked about that Phoenix startup opportunity I turned down last year? Well, they reached out again." Patricia's eyes widened with excitement and concern. "Really? And how do you feel about it this time?" Kelly smiled, appreciating how her mother now asked about her feelings instead of immediately offering advice. "Different. Really different. I'm actually considering it seriously this time." "What changed?" "Everything," Kelly said simply. "When I turned down opportunities because I was afraid of being close to family, I was making decisions based on fear and old wounds. Now I'm making decisions based on what I actually want for my life." The truth was that Kelly's entire relationship with success and belonging had transformed over the past 6 months. The regular conversations with Patricia and Amanda had revealed aspects of her family she'd never seen before. Patricia's dry humor, her genuine curiosity about Kelly's work, her thoughtful insights about business and creativity. Amanda's surprising depth, her own struggles with imposter syndrome in her marketing career, her desire to use her skills for meaningful causes. "Have you talked to Sarah about the possibility of moving?" Patricia asked. I nodded. "She's actually excited for me. She said, and I quote, 'It's about time you stopped running from the people who love you.' But she also made me promise that if I do move back to Arizona, it's because I want to be there, not because I'm trying to prove something." The friendship with Sarah had also evolved in beautiful ways. Instead of being Kelly's primary source of family-like support, she had become something even more valuable, a true chosen sister who celebrated Kelly's reconnection with her biological family while maintaining her own special place in Kelly's life. Speaking of proving things, Kelly continued, I have some news that I've been waiting to share until everything was finalized. Tell me. Kelly took a deep breath. I'm starting my own foundation, the Kelly Smith Foundation for Chosen Family. We'll provide design and branding services to organizations that support people building unconventional family structures, foster care organizations, LGBTQ+ youth services, support groups for adult children of divorce, immigrant families navigating new communities. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Kelly, that's incredible. But how will you fund something like that? That's the beautiful part, Kelly said, feeling the excitement she'd been containing for weeks. Remember Mrs. Chen, Sarah's mother, who owns that successful restaurant chain? She's been looking for meaningful philanthropic investments. When I told her about my idea, she offered to provide startup funding. And the Phoenix company that's been trying to hire me, they're interested in being a corporate sponsor. Kelly pulled another document on her screen. But here's the part that really matters to me. I want the foundation's first major initiative to be a storytelling project, collecting and sharing stories from people who found their way to belonging despite difficult family circumstances. You mean stories like yours? Exactly. But not just mine. I want to document stories from foster kids who found mentors who became chosen parents, from people who built families with close friends, from anyone who learned that love isn't limited by biology or traditional structures. Patricia was quiet for a moment, and Kelly could see her mother's eyes forming with tears. Mom, are you okay? I'm more than okay. I'm watching my daughter turn her pain into purpose, and I couldn't be more proud.
The pride in Patricia's voice was different from the polite congratulations Kelly had received in the past. This was deep, genuine admiration for who Kelly had become and what she was creating in the world. There's more, Kelly continued. I want you and Amanda to be involved. Not as advisors trying to help me succeed, but as collaborators. Amanda's marketing expertise would be perfect for outreach strategy, and I keep thinking about how your therapy journey gave you insights into family healing that could help other people. You want us to work together professionally? I want us to build something meaningful together. Something that helps other people find their way to the kind of family connection we've found. After they ended the call, Kelly sat back in her chair, marveling at how different her life felt now. The fear that had driven so many of her decisions for years had been replaced by something much more powerful, a clear sense of purpose rooted in authentic relationships. Her phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Mom just called me crying happy tears about your foundation idea. Count me in. Also, can we schedule a 3-way call this weekend to brainstorm? Kelly laughed, remembering how just months ago, the idea of regular contact with Amanda would have felt forced and artificial. Now, Amanda felt like what she'd always been, but Kelly had been too wounded to see. A genuine sister who wanted to support her dreams. The apartment that had once felt like a refuge from family complexity now felt like the launching pad for something bigger. Kelly looked around at the walls covered with her best design work, at the comfortable life she'd built entirely on her own terms, and realized she was ready to expand beyond the safe boundaries she'd created. 2 weeks later, Kelly found herself back in Phoenix, but this time everything was different. She wasn't running toward family, hoping for acceptance, nor was she running away from family, trying to protect herself. She was choosing to be present as her full, authentic self. The startup meeting went better than she dared hope. Not only did they offer her the creative director position with a salary that would allow her to fund the foundation's operations, but when she explained her vision for the foundation,
the CEO offered to make it the company's primary corporate social responsibility initiative. "We're a tech company built by people who had to create their own professional families," the CEO explained. "Your foundation's mission resonates with our entire team." After the meeting, Kelly met Patricia and Amanda at Le Petit Soleil, the cafe her mother had mentioned during that first hopeful phone call months ago. But this time, instead of desperate hope or fearful anticipation, Kelly felt the calm confidence that comes from knowing you're exactly where you belong. "So," Amanda said, raising her iced coffee in a mock toast, "are we really doing this? The Smith-Martinez family business venture?" "Smith-Martinez-Chen family business venture," Kelly corrected with a grin. "Sarah's flying out next week to scout apartments with me. She's considering opening a Boston Phoenix consulting practice." Patricia laughed, the sound free and joyful. "6 months ago, I thought I'd lost you forever. Now you're moving back to Arizona and starting a family business. How did we get here?" Kelly considered the question seriously. "We got here by telling the truth, by choosing love over fear, by deciding that family isn't something that just happens to you, it's something you actively create and nurture." As they sat together planning their shared future, Kelly realized her story had come full circle in the most unexpected way. She'd started this journey believing she needed to earn her place in her family. She'd discovered, instead, that the most powerful families aren't built on obligation or shared DNA, but on the daily choice to see each other clearly, support each other's growth, and love each other through the messy, complicated, beautiful work of being human. The compass rose necklace now hung around Patricia's neck, and every time Kelly saw it, she remembered that finding your way back to the people who matter most isn't about returning to where you started. It's about creating something entirely new together. Kelly Smith had finally found her family, not by changing who she was or accepting less than she deserved, but by becoming so fully herself that the right people couldn't help but recognize and celebrate her light. And now, through the foundation, she was going to help other people find their way to that same transformative belonging. The girl who had once flown 2,000 miles hoping for acceptance had become a woman building bridges for others searching for home. And that, Kelly realized, was the most beautiful plot twist of all.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.